Well, hello and welcome to this webinar based on NLP. And we've titled this, Let's Save Your Future. Now, what am I going to talk about here? At the risk of sounding negative, the risk of sounding critical of other schools, I thought I needed to do really more out of duty of care. How do you make the decision about which school to choose? This is a field that I love. I've been in it for over 15 years, and NLP has given me so much of what I have now. And I see so many people who invest heavily in NLP, but don't get what they want out of it. And we've just had a spate of calls in the last couple of months of people spending $15,000, $17,000 with other companies, being told they're going to be this amazing coach, they're going to earn $10,000 a month minimum, all this kind of stuff. And they feel like they've wasted that money and they don't really know what to do. They don't have money to retrain, which is kind of weird when you think, why are they calling us? But there seems to be like this just desperate hope that someone can help them. And I thought maybe the best thing I can do is help you make a good decision around it, to at least give you the reasons or give you the questions to ask. A little bit of an informed decision, I think, is crucial. We've seen companies come and go over the last 15 years, and many of them come in, do damage, and then go again. And the best way to deal with it is to arm yourself with information. So we're not going to talk too much about what we do in this webinar, but I will hopefully give you something that's going to be of value. So let's begin. Oh, if you have questions, please put them in the chat and I'll get to them at the end of the presentation. Hopefully many of them will be answered by the slides we've got. So NLP training should be the best investment you ever make in yourself. This is what I believe. Dollar for dollar, hour for hour, there is no better training than a good NLP training. That's a huge statement. I recognize that. And it is that good. Really, if we look at what NLP does, it teaches you how your mind works and how the minds of other people work. And if you think about it, you are the source of all your future success. Who you are as a person, your largely unconscious patterning will determine your success in life. Most of us are under the illusion that our intelligence and our qualifications will get us through life. In actual fact, that's not it. I have 2 degrees and I've had to unlearn most of what I learned through that process in order to be effective. So your intelligence is a different platform. Your unconscious patterning is the underpinning. You can be highly intelligent and still run pessimism. Now, when you think about it, always catastrophizing into the future, think about things going pear-shaped most of the time, despite the fact they rarely do, compared to how often you imagine them going pear-shaped. That's not really very smart, but your intelligence has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with your emotional reasoning. NLP should also give you the skills to save thousands of dollars over the coming years, depending on how much you spend, but buying a property, buying cars, negotiating in any transaction, you should be much better skilled as a result of NLP training. That might also mean that you secure a promotion or pay rises, or NLP training should give you the confidence and skill set to set up your own enterprise. You might choose to be a consultant in the same space that you're already in, or you might want to set up a training organization or a coaching practice. NLP training should be able to give you that. It should also give you the skills to become a key person of influence, whether that is in your team at work or at your team at home, namely your family, being much more influential because you have more refined and precise language patterns. It should also help you manage up and down. A lot of us are pretty good at managing down. We're not so great when managing up. This is something I had to learn. Should also teach you how to lead more harmonious teams, set up agreement frames. So NLP talks about frames. Frames are how you question the boundary sets of communication. NLP teaches you these things. Someone who's a master of NLP should have a significant advantage in the workplace. It should also help you present more effectively. So if you've got to present, and let's face it, the higher you go up in the corporate ladder, the more you, or maybe if you want to set up your own business, then your ability to present and let people know what you do is crucial. It should also give you the skills to build a unique level of self-leadership. That is your ability to self-regulate, to decide which thoughts and feelings you pay attention to and which ones you simply ignore. At the end of the day, that is a pivot point of your life. And most people don't really have that. They don't have an optimal kind of mechanism to decide which thoughts or feelings are useful and which ones they'll go with. It should also be something that gives you the ability to optimize these emotional or internal states in other people as well. So being able to teach others how to step away from the drama, the politics, and all the other stuff that gets in the way. It should also give you the ability to inoculate your children from the ravages of their own self-doubt and cyberbullying, which is an increasing issue. Teenagers these days are subjected to all sorts of things that, I as a teenager never really dealt with. We got bullied then, it happened in the moment, it didn't continue. Now it's all online, it's online for everyone to see, and it's online forever. So they need different skills, and the skill set that NLP gives you is the ability to decide not to be affected by something, to not listen to the voice of criticism or doubt or anything really. I don't want to go and say it, but maybe I should say it. We have the highest teenage suicide rate in the world. This disturbs me greatly. And a child that is cyberbullied is 600% more likely to take their own life than the average child. It is crucial that parents know how to teach their kids to not pay attention, to not buy into these things. It should also give you the skills to improve your performance in any area of life, really. And model the very best, because that's what NLP is about. It's about how do the very best, the top 1% of the population in any field of endeavor, how do they do what they do? And for you to take your life to the very next level. These are massive promises. And NLP can deliver, but the NLP training must be very good NLP training. You must train with the right school. So the next thing obviously is that I need to give you some guidelines, some questions to ask, some discernment on how you might choose the right school. Because online, everyone can look the same. Everyone can look legitimate, but if you scratch the surface a bit, it won't be long before you find out that there are gaps. So how do you choose? Well, the first one is to find out the expertise and the experience of the trainers. So what is their training? Who trained them? What you want is their training is to come from the source, from the experts in the field. People like the Milton Erickson Foundation, all their students, I trained with them. That's the source of where NLP was born. People like Richard Bandler, John Grinder, Robert Dilts, Steve Andreas, these are all key figures in the field. You want your trainer to have been trained by someone like that. If they were trained by someone who's 5, 6, 8 steps away from the source, then they're getting the Chinese whispers version, the rather diluted version of NLP. And as a result, they can't teach you what they don't know. The other thing I'd say to you is that you need to look at the expertise, because there are very few barriers to entry in NLP. The truth is, you could set up your own NLP school right now. There's nothing legally stopping you. The fact you're not qualified has nothing to do with it. So the only thing that would stop you would be the marketplace. When you upset enough people, you prove that you really didn't know what you're doing, at some point, you'll fade off. But if you've got great marketing, it'll take a while, because even though people don't like what you do, if your marketing manages to get them in, you'll last a little bit longer than the average person. So what is their training? How long have they been teaching NLP? This is not something you get good at after a year or two. It requires that you learn how people respond to the world. That takes experience. It kind of depends on what you want from NLP, but I'm going to say the more experienced, the more people they've worked with. So it's not even just about how long they've been teaching, how many people they worked with. So for instance, in my coaching and therapeutic practice, I've seen over 4,000 people in 15 plus years. We've had over 4,000 people go through our training. That's a lot of learning that you don't get out of a book or out of a seminar. Really, what you learn on the ground through experience is crucial in what you can deliver as a trainer. And as I said, look for these kinds of names, because although you may not be able to train with them, I've had to train overseas with a lot of these guys, you want the people who've trained with these guys. This is the source point. This is the truth from an NLP perspective. This is the top level. My original training was with someone who was much further down the line. I thought he was very good at what he did. I'm not critical of him in that way. But when I got to the States and started training with these guys, I actually had to unlearn a lot of what I'd been learned. A lot of things that I'd been taught, they just looked at me like, no, think about it. That can't work because of X, Y, Z. The idea, this is very common in NLP in Australia. You don't see it much in the States, but this idea that you create everything in your life. Like if a car mounts the curb and collects you on the pavement and you break your leg, how did you create that? No matter what happens in your life, NLP, if it's taught by someone who's, let's say, not one of the experts, it's very common for this myth that you create every single thing in your life to be part of the central tenet of what they teach. So if you've got a 3-year-old with cancer, how do the 3-year-old create their own cancer? This is sometimes just really poorly informed, and sometimes it's kind of offensive. I remember being at another school and I was having real problems with this assumption that you create everything in your life. I think you co-create. I think you always got some interplay and some contribution, but this whole thing that you're 100% responsible for everything that happens in your life. I said to one of the trainers there, so if a woman's been raped and she comes to see you and needs help, how would you tackle it? And he said, the first thing I'd ask her is, how did she create that? Now, I found that very disturbing. And at that moment, I knew straight away that he'd never worked with anyone, because you could not get away with that in a therapeutic context or a coaching context. No one's going to put up with that. You've just blamed the victim and you've let the persecutor off the hook. At that moment, I know you don't have experience with people. That would just be absolutely harsh. and make no sense. What are the strengths and the weaknesses of the trainer? So in addition to, are they expert in NLP generally, what are their gaps? Because we all have strengths and weaknesses. The idea that we don't is just ludicrous. Yeah. So what do you want specifically from NLP? And is your trainer an expert in that area? So the areas that I find interesting and I see people get caught up, people might come because they want more financial freedom. So they want to get better around money. Money is an issue for them, and they go to NLP to deal with it. They might have some fairly negative associations to money and they need to resolve it. Well, you need to go to an NLP trainer that doesn't have issues in that area. You want to find out what their financial situation is. Where do they work? What do their offices look like? You know, there's a guy that I liked a lot, but he put himself up as a financial guru of NLP at one point, and it had more to do with the fact he thought more people would pay more money to do that kind of course than what he was doing prior. And he was renting in Hurstville. You know, his car was worth $2,000. You know, I kind of took offense at the fact he even put himself up there like that, and I challenged him on it. And he had been one of my trainers. And for him, it was more about marketing than anything else. Well, to me, that's inappropriate. If you don't have the strength, you shouldn't be telling people you have the strength. Another one is relationships. People will often go to NLP in part because they want to sort out what's going on in the fact they just can't get the relationship they want. Well, there's no point going to an NLP trainer that's not in a relationship and hasn't been for a decade. If that's an area of expertise, if that's an area where you want your trainer to be strong, then you need to find out what the trainer's situation is. Are they married? Do they have a family? Are they in a relationship of any kind? If the answer is no, they might be quite good at NLP, but maybe not for you. Or the other more common one is the corporate advantage piece. So do they have any corporate understanding? Do they train in that space? Do they have a background in that space? There are some NLP trainers who have a HR background or an executive coaching background. You need to find the person who's more likely to be a good fit for you. All right? So I think that's a really important piece. Does the trainer have clinical experience? Now, you might think, well, is that really important? Here's why it's important. A good chunk of any NLP practitioner training will be the change technology. NLP is famous for its rapid change techniques. And ultimately, if your trainer only uses those same techniques 3 or 4 times a year when they actually run a training, then they're going to be fairly clunky with it. You want someone who is qualified and practicing as a coach or a therapist. They need to be seeing people, because that's how you get fluid with these sorts of things, is you're doing them regularly, weekly. This person is going to influence your thinking. This is really crucial. If you're going for personal change, do you know the expertise of that trainer? Are you going to be safe with this person working with your head? I've had to undo a fair bit of fairly shoddy work in the past, where people have almost had reactions, where people have been stuck for months as a result of getting involved in NLP trainings, and sometimes things that have got NLP background to it, but personal development generally run by people who actually don't have a lot of expertise. They don't belong to any professional bodies. They don't have the qualifications. They may be well-intentioned, but they're not skilled. So it's really, really important that you recognize the background. You want all the criteria. You want all the credentials of your trainer if you're going to let them influence you. This is your future. You're responsible for it. You've got to make choices. And what about the reputation and longevity of the school? So how long has it been operating? You want a school that's been around for a while. Have they ever been taken to fair trading or the ACCC, the Australian Consumer um, Association, Australian Consumer, I can't remember actually the letters here. But in essence, it's a consumer watchdog. Have they ever been taken to fair trading and lost? You need to ask that question and ask it in an email. Get a written response. I know that a good many of the NLP schools that you would be looking at, if you're looking seriously, would not be able to answer no to that. They have gone to fair trading, they've gone to the Consumer Commission, and they've lost. In some cases, they don't bother even going and defending anymore. They push you to take it that far before they're going to give you a refund. They just don't respond. That's disturbing to me. It disturbs me greatly that in this wonderful, beautiful space that should all be about creating possibilities for people, we do have companies, individuals who will claim they'll give you a refund if you don't like what you get, and then fight you on it until you take it as far as a full consumer watchdog application. They know most people aren't going to be bothered doing that, so they just don't respond until you do. That's disturbing to me. Another question is, are they government accredited? So maybe the course, a government accredited organisation like we are, can run government accredited courses and non-government accredited courses. But why would it be good if you train with someone who was government accredited? Well, we are subject to so much more stringent auditing. You know, there's a whole process that you have as a consumer to follow up, and you know, they take complaints very serious. ASQA, the Australian Skills Quality Assurance Organisation, takes complaints very, very seriously, and we're subject to that. If they're not government accredited, they're not subject to any of that. Increasingly, people are asking me about the ABNLP, or asking my staff about the ABNLP, the Australian Board of Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Are we a member? We actually aren't a member at the moment. And this is despite the fact that I used to be the president of the ABNLP. It used to be fairly representative of the NLP community. But now most of us who have significant schools have pulled away from it. We weren't really achieving what we were looking for. We couldn't establish a standard that was acceptable to most of us. It ended up being largely the lowest common denominator we could find. And as a result, all the key executive that set it up in the first place, I don't think any of us are still part of that organisation. The other thing, of course, is the question is, why would you be bothered being a member? Well, in most of these cases, insurance is the biggest reason why people become a member of a professional body, or health fund rebates, and ABNLP can't provide you either one of those. So I'm not saying it's no use being part of it. I'm saying for us, we don't see it as an important piece of our quality assurance. It's nothing against people who are part of it, but it isn't the end all and be all. Class sizes. Well, how do you choose? Well, I'm going to say class sizes change the dynamic. If a group is larger than 40 people, the trainer can't monitor individuals. It becomes a scripted training. So your own personal benefit is suppressed in the pursuit of the larger training group. And that's actually anti-NLP. NLP should be all about the individual. So when I'm running a training, I got a fair idea about what's going on for most people in the room. In fact, at the beginning of the course, I get you to stand up and ask me, what do you want? I get you to tell me what you want out of NLP. And that way, if I know that you need to apply NLP in certain ways, when we get to the area where we're discussing or we're demonstrating a technique, I can say, in your area, in management, you could do it this way. Or in, Jenny, in your area, as a childcare worker, you could do this. And I can give you specific examples that are going to be relevant to you. I can't do that once we start getting over 40 people. I can't spend the time finding out what you all want. And as a result, I'll just give you a generic training. That's how it would be. Now, I don't tend to do that. I don't like doing that. I'd rather have that intimacy piece, because knowledge is not power. The application of knowledge is power. So if you leave a training that may have been fun and bubbly and dancing and hugging and all the rest of it, but you can't apply it, it was a waste of time. It's now dinner party conversation. That's all it is. So you're going to lose that personal relevance. I'm going to say that a student trainer ratio should be about 20-1. Yeah. And off the back of that, what's the experience of any assistants? So some people say, well, we've got assistants and that's how we keep the numbers down. Well, you need to ask questions. Again, get it in writing. Are they unpaid volunteers? I've assisted in other NLP schools before I was a school myself. They were all unpaid volunteers. What's the criteria for these assistants? And these assistants are the people who are going to inform you about what's happening. They're going to give you those, when you've got to ask your question, it's one of the assistants that helps you. Well, typically they're people who are willing to give their time free, and they give their time free because they want to sit in on the course themselves again for free. So they're getting a benefit of being able to sit back in the course. So in many cases, they're just where you were last course. So they're doing a second time round. So they're either just studying slightly ahead of you, but in some cases, actually, they need to do the course because they didn't get it the first time round. So if anything, I saw volunteers who were saying things to students that were just inappropriate. They were just completely wrong. And I found this very challenging. And what I decided to do was have no one in the room who was actually going to interact with a student that wasn't trained, that wasn't actually informed and briefed and had sat in numerous courses and was actually working as an NLP practitioner or coach themselves. So in my school, we only have paid assistants. We don't have volunteers. And I think it's pretty important. You must find that out, because if your dominant interactions are with the volunteers, how much do they actually know? Could they be steering you in the wrong direction? I've seen it. Another question is, who recommends them? So look at their testimonials. Are the people in their testimonials discerning people, professional people? Are they people who understand good training from poor training? We're a little guilty of not putting the average person on or featuring the average person on our testimonials. Why? Well, we recognize that some people want to see themselves in the testimonials. They want to see a person just like them. However, Jenny from, Castle Hill may not know what good training is. She could say it's the best thing she's ever done, but if she's not done anything else, it doesn't really mean a lot. In many ways, a lot of people who come to us want to be or want to emulate these people. We have Sky business reporters giving testimonials, heads of companies, university professors, Olympic athletes. These are the sort of people that are giving us testimonials. These are the people that many of you want to become. And there's a blueprint for success. It can be modeled. And that is to do what the best do. What do successful people do differently? In many ways, they're more discerning. They make different choices. So I encourage you to look at why we might put those people on the website. Yes, you may not want to become one of them, but they understand good training. CEOs have access to very expensive and very, very high quality training. When we have people of that caliber telling us that what we do is exceptional, then it tells us a lot about our training, and it should tell you a lot about your training too. If you want the best outcomes, you've got to train with the best you can find. If these people are saying that we're the best, then there isn't any better reference point. Who's the typical participant as well? Here's the thing. What's the age group? What's the level of maturity? What's the level of education? You know, is the training more motivational? If it's motivational, it'll be lots more of the hugging and the dancing and all that kind of stuff. Well, we're not that. If you want the hugging and the dancing and it seems a bit more like a party, then it's a younger age group. That age group, if got to be fair, and I was that age group too at one point in my life, obviously, not as discerning. As you get a little bit older and you want real bang for buck, then a more mature training is what you're looking for. You're looking for something that's going to build skills, because that's going to take you past the motivational piece. If you're a little bit more naive, then you think that just changing your thinking is going to change all your outcomes. That if you believe you can achieve, that's just not true. Believe all you like. If you don't have the skill set, you don't have the knowledge, believe all you wish. Your life's not going to change. And a lot of personal development has become this myth that if you just feel confident, then everything else will come your way. It just doesn't happen that way. Confidence is a nice stepping stone, but if you don't have skills and knowledge, not much is going to happen for you. Is the promise realistic? There are some ridiculous claims in this field. We see them constantly. We get the phone calls from people who've spent a lot of money having bought into this dream, and now they recognize it's not even remotely possible. We saw this recently, that someone made $14,000 in 3 days straight after the NLP practitioner course. Well, a discerning individual would recognize that that didn't happen as a result of the training. That had to be set up before the training. The training is only 5 days long. These things don't just happen unless you think it's magical. That now you've got NLP, you can attract things into your life that are so different. I'm sorry, you attract things, you choose things. You know, why do you keep attracting that man into your life? You didn't attract him, you chose him. You've got to start to recognize that you got to take responsibility for your choices. And this type of advertising where there's this promise somehow that you'll get all your money back and more within a very short space for the training. Here's a question for you. If the trainer's that good, why does he need to train you? Why doesn't he just pull you in $14,000 in 3 days, every 3 days? Why does he need to spend time with you? The other big thing that I find offensive is this 7 days training, and you go from being worth $30 an hour to suddenly you're worth $300 an hour as a coach. That virtually never happens. I can tell you now, I've been in the field for 15 years, that is a lie. If you've already got some management training, or you've also already got some skills, then maybe you can go and become a successful coach. But you weren't worth $30 an hour prior to the training. You already had something going for you. Our coaching course is 20 days spread out across 6 to 8 months with lots of online material and practicing and a whole range of things. It's not, even though it's 20 days, it's a lot more than that, because you only get $300 an hour if you can provide enough value to a client that they are willing to pay you that kind of money. And the only people who have that kind of money are discerning people in the first place. They're people who don't throw that money away. So it's disturbing to me how many people buy into this type of stuff. I get that people want to believe the dream. You know, it's akin to saying that I heard the other day, one of my own graduates, well, she's a student right now, but she put a property with a real estate agent who promised that she could get $720,000 for a house, and she lives in another state. And he's listed it, and 3 weeks later, the market has changed a lot, and now it's only worth $600,000. It's dropped $120,000 in 3 weeks. He got the listing because he lied to her. He got the listing because he sold her the dream that would be worth a lot more, and then he had to manage her expectations thereafter. It's called buying the listing. There's actually a phrase for it in real estate. Don't tell the client the truth, sell them on the dream, and then you'll have to manage their expectations later. This is what's happening here. And one of the problems you've got is that people aren't getting these promises in writing. Writing is evidence. Get people to give it to you in writing. Email, letter, something. What else do you need to know? Well, can you get a taste first? Can you sit in on a course? If there's a course scheduled, you can come in at 12:30, talk to anyone you like in the room, so current students, and then sit in for an hour or so once the course starts. There's no better way of getting a look and feel. There's no better way of finding out whether you'll get what you want than talking to the people in the current course. Can you meet the trainer? If not, why not? Can you meet a graduate? If not, why not? All the people you'll speak to in our office are graduates. Most of the time, 85% plus of our staff came to us as students first and are now graduates of ours. We employ our own people. We love doing that. We have a lot of intention with a lot of different projects we're running to employ more of our own people. Find out, come to our office and find out how we've carved out a life for ourselves. How do we set ourselves up on a daily basis? You know, going to the workplace of the people that you're supposed who are going to show you how to be, exceptional, is a really useful thing to do. You know, one of the things I found is that not all trainers are what they say they are. You go to their workspace, you soon find out that they're not as successful as you'd like them to be, or as they would like you to think they are. Is it guaranteed? Request every sales claim in writing. They tell you something's going to happen. They tell you going to refund you. Whatever they're going to tell you, make sure you get a confirmation email around it. Don't leave anything to a discussion. And if they're not willing, well, here's 3 options. They will either write it down for you and clarify, or they'll start backtracking from it when you ask for it in writing, or when they give it to you in writing, it's changed somewhat. There's all sorts of caveats around it. So unless this company, whatever company it is willing to write it down exactly as they said it on the phone, you want to steer clear of them. It's a great shame that so many companies in this field have been taken to fair trading or this ACCC. This beautiful art and science that we have, this wonderful space of personal development, shouldn't be littered with this kind of stuff, and yet it is. And it's a great shame, but we've got to deal with the reality. Your job is to be discerning of whoever you're going to use as a trainer. Be discerning, find out, research. Half the time, clever marketing buys people in, but in the end, that doesn't protect you from anything. What you need is skills and knowledge and the right trainer to get you there. If you don't, then this will be a wasted investment. So in the end, you need to speak to someone. You need to speak to someone who's been where you've been, where you are now. All our course advisors started off as students. They know the courses well because they've done all of the courses. Give them a call. Any questions about what we've talked about tonight, give them a call. If we're not the right fit for you, they'll tell you. Whenever any new person's just come in, our first statement is, we don't lie. We don't mislead. We don't do any of that sales stuff. We have on one occasion brought in a salesperson who just refused to be straight up with people. And I tell her, you can't tell people we're going to do that because we don't. And she'd say, okay. And then she would do it the next phone call. And she didn't last very long. We had to get rid of her because she didn't want to. She was so used to just saying whatever she needed to get people over the line. That's not us. We don't want to do it like that. We expect to have a long-term, very personal relationship with you. There are people who've been graduates of ours who have, we spend time with, we have Christmas parties with, some of these people have been at my wedding. Our job is to improve people's lives and introduce them to possibilities in the way that NLP has done it for me. That requires a level of integrity and long-term support. So wherever you choose to go, be discerning, find out what you need. Don't just leave it at the surface level. Get people to put things in writing. That'll sort them out. If they're not willing to write it down for you, whatever promise they're offering, then you should probably review. Any questions about tonight? By all means, please contact the office. The phone number's there. I wish you a very good night, and I really hope this has been useful to you. Okay. Hopefully we'll see you soon.